Welcome in, everyone, to the It's Official podcast. Jeremy Plonk here from First Bet and Express Bet. A special shout out to those of you checking in on the first Belmont Stakes wager guide. Those of you not in the wager guide, checking out our typical Tuesday podcast, you can download and access the official First Kentucky Derby wager guide. Go now to first.com, news.first.com, and click on the wager guide icon. And you can pick up a copy of the wager guide, which has stats and information, workout videos, everything you need to play and handicap the Belmont Stakes like a pro and all of the races. Friday and Saturday, the big Belmont Stakes Festival underway this weekend, Friday through Sunday. We'll have great coverage for you with full card picks from the First Bet AI. Michelle, you will take a look at the Acorn Stakes on Friday. And then on Saturday, the Belmont Stakes, it'll be myself. It'll be Millie Ball, it'll be Jeff Siegel, and a team of handicappers from around the first team to give you all of our insights towards the 157th running of the Belmont Stakes. Here on the podcast, each and every Tuesday, we take on 5 hot topics in horse racing. This week, it's all about handicapping the Belmont Stakes, so let's get after it from 5 different angles, if you will, as we group the horses, talk about different scenarios of handicapping this 1.25 mile test of a champion. It's not the 1.5 miles. It's not Belmont Park. Of course, we're at Saratoga for the second straight year and probably next year as well as the renovations go at Belmont Park. And maybe in 2027, we get back to Big Sandy, 1.5 miles in the traditional Belmont Stakes. But we're back to Saratoga for 1.25 miles on Saturday this year. And let's take a look at our first topic. It's the posts and the pace of this year's Belmont Stakes. Yesterday in Saratoga Springs, the ceremonial post position draw drew 8 runners, and here's how Belmont 157 will line up from the rail out. Hill Road on the rail for Chad Brown at 10-1. Sovereignty, the winner of the Kentucky Derby, in post 2 at 2-1. Rodriguez from post 3, back after some foot issues, probable front runner at 6-1. Uncaged at 30-1, a long shot for Todd Pletcher. Pletcher doubles up with Crudo, the 5. Impressive winner on the Sir Barton Stakes on the Preakness undercard at 15-1. Baeza, third in the Kentucky Derby at 4-1 for John Shuras, back from California. The fellow Californian journalism has been east since coming for the Kentucky Derby. The only horse to run in all 3 legs of the Triple Crown this year. If he starts, he's the 8-5 morning line favorite, according to NYRA oddsmaker David Aragona. And Heart of Honor, second time from overseas, UK-based, UAE raced. Heart of Honor for the father-daughter team of Jamie and Safi Osborne. 30-1 long shot on the tote board. We mentioned Sovereignty. We mentioned the runner-up in the Derby journalism. And, of course, Beza. That gives us a 1-2-3 finish out of the Kentucky Derby. Back at it again.
Meanwhile, we look back for journalism. He's been swung to the outside by Umberto Rispoli, and he's picking off horses one by one on the far outside. Neo Equos is the leader at the top of the stretch. Journalism is on the move as they turn for home, and Sovereignty is coming with him on the outside. The 2 of them go right by with a furlong to run. Journalism and Sovereignty, nose to nose, down to the last 16th of a mile. Sovereignty has taken the lead. Journalism is second toward the inside. Baeza is third, but it will be Sovereignty to rule the Kentucky Derby. Journalism and Baeza were next. Final Gambit was fourth. The final time was 2:02.31 seconds.
Of course, we didn't see the 1-3 finishers of the Derby back in the Preakness Stakes. That went to journalism in a hard-fought victory. We'll take a look at that race in a little bit. But as for the rematch and the 3 of them coming back, in terms of post positions, I really don't think there are any winners and losers in the post position draw. When you look at a 1.25 mile race, it's a 9-furlong oval at Saratoga. A good run, long run into the first turn here. And you also have a situation, too, where just an 8-horse field, I don't think it's really a bad place to be. Now, there are some interesting points about the post position draw in here. Rodriguez, the logical speed in here, is inside of number 5, Crudo, the other logical speed. You may see Crudo concede the front. If you were wondering who goes to the front, Crudo or Rodriguez. With Rodriguez drawn to the inside, he'll probably be sent a little bit harder under Mike Smith to try to maintain that position. So Rodriguez probably makes the front with Crudo in the pressing position because of the post position draw. Flip those 2 and maybe Crudo goes to the front and Rodriguez presses. As for the big favorites in here, Sovereignty from the 2, no problem there. He's going to drop near the back of the pack. We'll look at the pace in just a moment. Journalism in an interesting neighborhood neighborhood there. Baeza's been a little green and has kind of been a little funky in some of his races. He was pretty well behaved in the Kentucky Derby. He's to the outside of Baeza, and he's also to the inside of Heart of Honor, who didn't want to load and was kind of, delaying things in the Preakness Stakes last time when finishing fifth. So, maybe Journalism's in a little bit of a pickle there with the 6 and the 8, both as potential horses who could do some funky things early in the race. Journalism will want to get out of there and kind of extract himself from that sort of, any kind of bad neighborhood, if you will, in terms of handicapping. So post-position draw, I don't think going to be very relevant, though, to the outcome of this race, but something certainly to look at. Now, the pace certainly will play a factor in how this mile and a quarter shakes out. And here's how I project the pace to go here. This is based on my intuition here. Again, with Rodriguez drawing inside of Crudo, I think that kind of ensures that's where the speed's going to come from. Those two clearly the fastest early in this race. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't even think on rider intent, if some of the others really wanted to go, I'm not sure they're quick enough to get in front of Rodriguez or Crudo. I think one of those two leads you into the clubhouse turning onto the backstretch. Baeza could be up closer to the pace than certainly he was in the Kentucky Derby. Remember, in the Kentucky Derby, yes, he came from 15th that day, but he was in the 19 hole in the Kentucky Derby in a 19-horse field. Remember, he was also eligible, drew into the field. That made them drop back a little bit more and make a run with him. I think this is a horse, Baeza, who's got more tactical speed. If you look at some of his races in the Santa Anita Derby, he was slightly in front of Journalism in that race. I think he might be slightly in front of him again. As for the middle runners there, Uncaged in Journalism gets kind of a run on the deep closers in here. Heart of Honor, Sovereignty, Hill Road, all want to come from the back of the pack, I think. So we have a pretty evenly balanced pace situation, when you look across the speed, the pressers, the middle, and the closers. And this should be a pretty fairly run race looking at the way this is evenly distributed, right? I mean, a lot of times when you have too many horses in that speed category, you're looking for a meltdown and give the closers a big, chance to come on and finish with a more sustained run. Sometimes when you don't have anything towards the front of the pack hardly, and everybody's kind of lumped in the closer category, that race can then walk the dog on the front end sometimes and pull an upset. So this looks like a very balanced pace scenario to me, and I think it's going to be a fairly run Belmont Stakes. You put in the factor, too, of just an 8-horse field. A lot less can go wrong here than what we saw, obviously, in Louisville 5 weeks ago for any of the runners. Sovereignty should have an easier trip, even though I thought he had a really nice run and really not a lot of traffic to speak of in the Kentucky Derby. But then again, a smaller field size doesn't necessitate that you're going to get an easy trip. There were 9 in the Preakness Stakes, and Journalism found a hell of a lot of trouble in that one. So, it doesn't ensure that you're going to get an easy trip, but it certainly takes a lot of the variables out of here. So I think it's a fairly evenly run pace that doesn't give any advantage to any particular horse in here, I don't think. Baeza could, if this scenario is right on and Rodriguez and Crudo go to the front, Baeza does sit a dream trip if he's third. There's been a lot of talk with Journalism in his camp, Michael McCarthy, that they've wanted to be up closer to the pace, and they feel that this horse has more speed. But every time he runs, you just don't see it. So, you go back through the running lines with Journalism throughout his career. He's run 7 times now. He's been within a length of the lead once in the Los Al Futurity when he's second and third, a length back off the pace in that one. Every other race he's been in, he's been back a little bit, in that category of, almost 2 to 5, 8 lengths in the Kentucky Derby. That was an exception with a little bit of shuffling at the start of the Kentucky Derby and then jostling around down on the inside with Luxor Cafe. He was 6th of 20 in the Kentucky Derby, or 6th of 19 in the Kentucky Derby early on, or 10th of 19 in the Kentucky Derby, 6th of 9 in the Preakness Stakes. That's why I just kind of kept him in the middle category here. There's a lot of talk that he has more speed than what he's showing, but I think he's got to show it in order to kind of be up in that category. And I think there's enough speed horses in here, again, as we mentioned. There's defined speed in Rodriguez and Crudo that want to go to the front. He could be up there third. And if Journalism does sit third and takes that trip that I've got Baeza penciled in for, he is going to be a tough hombre if he's able to get that kind of trip. I think he'll be a little bit further back in there. I'd look for him to be about maybe 4 lengths off the pace, middle of the pack down the backstretch, but certainly with a couple lengths head start on some of the other closers in there, Heart of Honor, Sovereignty, and Hill Road. that's the way we shake out the posts and the pace. I think it's going to be an evenly run race. Give everybody a chance really to run their best. So you want to handicap this race, not necessarily from a pace scenario. This is one of those races that I think to the best horse, the horse in the best form cycle, maybe a horse who's training up to the race best. Those are the kind of things you want to look at. And then just straight up your evaluation of talent, because a mile and a quarter separates talent for sure. An 8-horse field should keep you away from a lot of trouble. This should be to the best horse, and I think that's the way we want to handicap this race, not giving any big advantages to a post position for sure, and a pace scenario I don't think it's going to give anybody a big advantage either. Let's go to our second topic this week on It's Official. And we are going to take a look next up at who gets the bounce in the rubber match. The rubber match, of course, in sporting and gaming terms, is when we get to game 3 and one opponent has won one of the games, another opponent has won the other. That's the scenario we have with the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes. Of course, the Kentucky Derby was won by Sovereignty. The Preakness Stakes won by Journalism. And boy, did Journalism have to work for it last time, but he was impressive with that come home.
Journalism is still 6th. He's got a lot of ground to cover. He is still 5 lengths behind as they make their way toward the top of the stretch. Gosker trying to pull off a huge upset here. Has taken the lead on the outside. Clever again cuts the corner. Journalism is getting closer now. He's behind a wall of horses. He's looking for a place to go, and he's got nowhere to go. Oh, he bumped hard with Goal Oriented. In the meanwhile, Gosker's running the race of his life, and Sandman has entered the scene, and he has moved up on the far outside. Journalism is still running on. He's back into second. He might even win it. Here's the wire. Oh my goodness! Journalism has won the Preakness Stakes in a performance like you read about.
Triple Crown videos, courtesy of NBC Sports. Announcer there, of course, Larry Comus with the call of those two. So here we are in the rubber match at the Belmont Stakes. We had the same scenario last year. Mystic Dan and Seize the Gray coming off their wins. Those were both upsets, right? Mystic Dan upset the Derby, Seize the Gray. Nobody saw that coming when he wired the Preakness Stakes. Neither one of those horses finished well in the Belmont Stakes. They were both off the board. In fact, as we go back in history and look, since 1990, here are the rubber matches we've seen in the Belmont Stakes. And as you look down the list there, we have 8 of them. So this will be the 9th since 1990. And going back to 1991, Strike the Gold and Hansel in their rematch, they ran 1-2. And Strike the Gold, of course, was the Derby winner. The Preakness winner was Hansel. Hansel got the victory. And when you look down the left-hand column, the Kentucky Derby winner in the last 8 matchups against the Preakness winner has not won this race. And only once out of the 8 previous starts, when Sea Hero ran 7th and Prairie Bayou did not finish, unfortunately broke down that day at Belmont in the Belmont Stakes. The only time in the last 8 rubber matches that the Derby winner has outfinished the Preakness winner was in 1993, and that comes with an asterisk. With obviously the injury to Prairie Bayou. 3 times in those 8 we've seen, or 4 times in those 8 we've seen the Preakness winner win the Belmont Stakes, another time running second with Oxbow. So if you look at the record, the Preakness winner, 8 starts, 4 wins, and a second. As for the Derby winner, 8 starts, no wins, 2 seconds, and 2 third-place finishes. So in the rubber match, who has the advantage, the Derby winner or the Preakness winner? I guess if you look at history, you would say the Preakness winner. So let's talk about Journalism first up. Here he is at Saratoga, putting in his one and only workout since the Preakness Stakes. That is normal on regular timing, right? There are 3 weeks between the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes. Typically, a horse will work 14 days after a race. That's typical in recovery timing to get back on the workout tab. So here he was 2 weekends after the Preakness Stakes, 1 weekend out from the Belmont Stakes. And on June 1st, on Sunday, this was Journalism in action with his first spin around Saratoga. An excellent workout here. Half mile in 47.54, 47 and 2 to show that journalism is still on his game. No target here for Michael McCarthy, just out for a solo work, but corner's nice in here and is going to finish up well. Look, journalism just keeps on producing a big effort in the Kentucky Derby, a bigger effort in the Preakness Stakes, given everything that happened. A lot of speed figure companies have him actually running faster in the Preakness than he did in the Derby. The buyer figures show a slight regression in there in terms of the Preakness from the Kentucky Derby. You could argue whether or not he is still peaking and developing, but some figure services say yes, some say no. But when you just look raw performances, he has never misfired. Around 2 turns now, he's won 5 of 6, his only loss in the Kentucky Derby. Journalism looks to be flourishing and doing well. And again, history says the Preakness winner does exceptionally well in these matchups against the Kentucky Derby winner head-to-head when they get to the Belmont Stakes. But we have a little bit of a difference this year when we talk about that. Let's look at Sovereignty and his workout here. This is his work 2 back. Now, he's had 2 workouts since the Kentucky Derby with 5 weeks in between. So he's been a little more busy. Obviously, Sovereignty has gone to the racetrack at Saratoga since he's been up there. And Saratoga has produced, or he's had 3 workouts since the Belmont Stakes. Since the Preakness Stakes, I should say. Sovereignty since the Kentucky Derby. We'll get it straight. He's had 3 workouts since the Kentucky Derby, which is right on cue when you have 5 weeks between races, 2 weeks off to get back to the workout tab, and then he's worked once each week in between. So Sovereignty here with Arthur's Ride, a horse who won the Whitney last year. He's working in pretty good company. We don't get a great look at it from the video here from the ground level, but to work in company, 102 and change, and he's going to outfinish Sovereignty's going to outfinish Arthur's Ride, the gray here through the lane, and do it pretty well. There's no knock on what Sovereignty has done in his training. Again, he's had 3 workouts. You can check them out inside the wager guide. We've got some more works for Sovereignty, and of course at Watch First, first.tv will give you all the workouts that we have on these horses. A good gallop out here as you see Sovereignty going out through into the clubhouse turn. That was on the Oklahoma training track at Saratoga with his workout, that back on May 24th. He has had 1 workout since then, and he is set to go for the Belmont Stakes. The one difference, as we mentioned, though, in this rubber match compared to history is most of those Kentucky Derby winners, in fact, all of those Kentucky Derby winners, were not horses who skipped the Preakness. So now we are looking at a rubber match situation where a horse has a bit of an advantage, maybe being more rested and fresher in Sovereignty than what we have with Journalism, who has run in the interim between the Derby and the Belmont with, of course, that tough and, hard-knocking win in the Preakness Stakes. Nothing was easy about the Preakness for Sovereignty or for Journalism. So the big question here in the rubber match, who has the advantage? History will say that the advantage goes to Journalism. The workouts, probably a push. We didn't see as much, obviously, but Journalism came out of his race with a really strong work. So I kind of think that's more of a push. But in terms of the rest and, being fresher, I guess you would give the advantage to Sovereignty in this case. So in the head-to-head, how do we look at these two? There's a lot to evaluate. Sovereignty has 1 race over the track at Saratoga. It was a 4th place finish in his career debut. This will be the first time around the track at Saratoga for Journalism, who has started at, 6 different racetracks now, 3 in Southern California, Churchill being 4, Pimlico 5. This will be the 6th different track for Journalism in 8 career starts. Sovereignty, though, does have a race at Saratoga. It wasn't a bad performance, but it's the worst finish of his career, 4th beaten a little over 3 lengths. But that was in a sprint race at the Spa last year when he was 11-1. So it's actually a pretty promising debut. And of course, he's been so much better going long. I wouldn't take the 1 4th place finish at Saratoga for Sovereignty and say that's a negative. Because it was actually a pretty productive career debut. I think he's going to handle the track just fine. In terms of pedigree of these two, though, I think you do look a little bit at the edge to the son of Curlin here. Journalism, Curlin gets 19% winners at Saratoga, 26% in Saratoga Stakes routes for offspring of Curlin. I think that's a major number in there with a positive ROI. Whereas you look at Sovereignty, he's by Into Mischief. And we talk about those Saratoga routes, 1 1/8 or further in Stakes Company. The Into Mischiefs are 1 for 18 going that long on the main at Saratoga. So maybe a pedigree play goes to Journalism here over the track at Saratoga. So There's a little bit each way in this rubber match. How do you want to evaluate the two of them? At this stage, there's something to like about both. Let's go now to our third topic this week on It's Official. See if we can't figure this field out a little bit more. As our third topic this week is our triple down, double down, triple crown, double downs. These are the horses that are running for the second time in the Triple Crown series, not amongst the rubber match of the two big winners of the Derby and the Preakness. But we have two horses in this category. You've got Baeza coming off the third place finish in the Kentucky Derby, and Heart of Honor coming off the fifth place finish in the Preakness Stakes. Let's talk about Baeza here. He's going to be a horse who's going to get a lot of attention in the Belmont Stakes. Here he is working back at Santa Anita Park on May 23rd. Of course, Baeza is a horse who did not run in the Preakness Stakes, as we mentioned. So on timing, you would look for him to get 3 workouts between the Derby and the Preakness. He did so May 16th, May 23rd, what you're seeing here. And then he did have a half-mile breeze at Saratoga yesterday on Monday. His first move over the training track there, the Oklahoma training track across the street from Saratoga Racetrack. And Baeza's had his 3 works right on cue. He's had some additional travel. Journalism, of course, went to Pimlico and then up to Saratoga. He hasn't been back to California. But the Californians here, Baeza and one we'll talk about a little bit later, Rodriguez, did go back home to California. Baeza here is easily putting away Westwood, who was his rabbit, if you remember, back in the Santa Anita Derby to help set up the pace for him. He was no competition here in this work and really didn't give him much in terms of a push at all. Baeza does it all within himself here. Looks pretty good in 112 and change. Not a big workout, though, in the work, a half mile at the Oklahoma training track at Saratoga on Monday. But this was his important work, and this was a pretty good workout here for Baeza. You would think that with the value players out there trying to find something that's not the 2 favorites, Baeza is going to be the natural horse that a lot of people land on. He's lightly raced. He's been green in some of his races. Very promising finish to the Kentucky Derby. There's a lot to like about Baeza in the Belmont Stakes, and I think a lot of people are going to flock to him. What kind of price might we see on Baeza? According to the morning line, 4-1. That's pretty realistic, I think, in terms of his general chances to win this race. He feels like about a 4-1 shot in here. Will that price push down? Will more people be looking for an alternative? I think a lot of handicappers and public handicappers are going to flock to Baeza. That doesn't necessarily mean the general public will. The general public's going to be, and I'm not talking about the Belmont Stakes having a big, loose, casual audience to it, but even just the general public amongst horse players, I think are still going to flock to Journalism and Sovereignty. And those two almost force the price of Baeza to be up there, unless they just let everybody else go. If Rodriguez gets let go 10-12-1, if Hill Road gets let go 15-1, then you could see a situation where Baeza is bet down even off the 4-1 while playing those other 2 horses. And we could see a situation where all 3 of them are kind of pounded in the windows and everybody else let go. If you like Baeza, you want to see some money come in on Rodriguez. You want to see some money come in at Hill Road. Those are the important horses, I think, to the price of Baeza. I think it's kind of baked in. Journalism's going to get bet. We're going to see betting on Sovereignty. They're not going to be overlays of any significance in the Belmont Stakes. And I think Baeza is going to be a very, very popular alternative. But he could hold this price if there are enough people backing Rodriguez and Hill Road. So I do think that those are the keys going into it. Baeza, a legitimate chance in here. We talked about some pedigrees for the main track at Saratoga. As for Baeza, he's by McKenzie. McKenzie has 11 starters on the main track at Saratoga on the dirt. 4 winners, 3 third-place finishers. Amongst those 4 wins are 2-time stakes winner Chancer McPatrick, who won a couple stakes last year as a 2-year-old on the Saratoga dirt. So McKenzie's not a sire who's had a ton of horses in recent years, a newer type sire, but he's had 11 starters on the main track at Saratoga with 4 winners. Baeza is bred to like it at Saratoga. And of course, McKenzie, the sire we're talking about, did win the 2019 Grade 1 Whitney over the main track at Saratoga. And of course, Baeza's dam, Puka, last year produced the Belmont Stakes winner, Dornick. So if you like Baeza on paper, you like it that he's fresh, you're going to like him at Saratoga based on the pedigree. The McKenzie numbers are significant. McKenzie, a major winner over the track in the Whitney. The offspring of Puka, of course, had made just the Derby winner 2 years ago, but last year, more appropriate to this race, Dornick at 1.25 miles at Saratoga winning. There's a lot to like about Baeza. If you're talking about one of these horses who are looking for the Triple Crown double down, running second time in the Triple Crown series, and he's got the freshness. Baeza under Flavian Pratt, going to be very, very tough, I think, in the Belmont Stakes. What kind of price might we get? I think fair odds are around that 4-1. If you're going to beat both the Derby and Preakness winner, I think you want to kind of demand somewhere around that 4-1 price. Certainly not below 3-1, but in that 3-1 to 4-1 range, I think is pretty fair odds. As for the other horse trying to do the double down in the Triple Crown, let's talk Heart of Honor for just a moment. Heart of Honor is a long shot in here, 30-1 out of post number 8. Jamie Osborne trains. This one ran sneaky decent in the Preakness Stakes, honestly. Fifth in there, beating 8 3/4 lengths. And I didn't give the race in terms of trip because this horse avoided all the banging and everything that was going on down to the inside. I didn't give this trip really that much, kudos looking at it. But then when I got the brisk past performances to look at the Belmont Stakes, he had the best brisk late pace figure, a 109 in the Preakness. That was a big finish out of Heart of Honor. So if you're looking for a horse from off the pace, if you think they cook a little bit in here and a horse can close as we go back to our pace scenario, Heart of Honor is going to be one of those deep closers in here. He's going to be a much better price than Hill Road. Sovereignty's a better horse. But if you're looking for the long shot closer, maybe to run second, third, or fourth, or you're playing exactas, tries, or supers, Heart of Honor might be a better alternative than Hill Road, because Hill Road, in terms of price, as we look back at the odds, Hill Road as the closer is 10-1 in the morning line, Heart of Honor 30. And I think those numbers are going to hold up. I think you're going to see a huge price on Heart of Honor, and Hill Road should be a medium-sized price for Trad Brown. So if you're looking for a long shot bomb, maybe to close and get a part of the exotics, maybe Heart of Honor, second time through the Triple Crown Series. And as we mentioned with the earlier graphic, the Preakness horses coming to the Belmont have had a little bit more success than the Derby horses to the Belmont in a lot of these recent past couple decades. So maybe the Preakness sets up Heart of Honor with that big 109 late brisk pace figure. If you're looking for a bomber, I don't think he can win. I think too many good horses have to not run their race for this horse to win. But maybe two good ones run first and second, and you're only looking to beat a handful of decent horses then to run third. Heart of Honor might be one of those to consider. He's part of those Triple Crown double downs, our third topic. Let's go to the fourth topic this week on the It's Official podcast. Fashionably late to the party. So which of these horses did not run in the Kentucky Derby, did not run in the Preakness, and are showing up in the third leg of the Triple Crown? Well, we've got 4 horses in this category. As we go back to the field page, we've got Rodriguez in here from post number 3, first time in the Triple Crown. You've got Hill Road, first time in the Triple Crown from the rail. Crudo, the 5, and Uncaged, the 4, the 2 Todd Pletchers. So of the first 5 in the starting gate there, 4 of them will be making their Triple Crown Series debuts. We've seen that have some success in recent years. Think Arcangelo and some of the others who have in recent years won the Belmont Stakes, running in the series for the first time. Of course, Arcangelo winning it in 2023, coming out of the Peter Pan Stakes. The Peter Pan Stakes is the race that Hill Road comes out. So let's introduce you to Hill Road, new to the Triple Crown Series. He's for Chad Brown, a son of Quality Road, coming off a win in the Peter Pan Stakes.
They reach the top of the stretch, and Captain Cook is very stubborn and game towards the inside. McAfee continued to travel well, is ready to challenge, and McAfee to the outside. Hill Road is coming from far out of it, and here comes Hill Road with sights on the top 2. Captain Cook is in front. McAfee, these two shoulder to shoulder, and Hill Road about to join them both. McAfee's taking the lead. Here comes Hill Road with every single stride to win the Peter Pan. Hill Road over McAfee, then came Captain Cook and Surfside Moon.
Peter Pan Stakes, typically a local prep to the Belmont, but of course that's run at Aqueduct now. And while we run the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga, it doesn't have the same kind of direct correlation, Peter Pan to Belmont Stakes, as we saw a couple years ago when it was a successful trip for Arcangelo. In the past, Sir Winston came out of the Peter Pan in 2019 to win the Belmont. Tonalist, one of the more famous, in 2014 when he denied California Chrome's win of the Triple Crown. And then, of course, going back even further AP Indy in 1992, Coastal in 1979. So the Peter Pan from 79 to 2023, he's had 4 or 5 winners at the Belmont Stakes over the years. A little bit different, though, because we don't have the apples to apples Belmont Park to Belmont Park. But the Peter Pan Stakes certainly on timing. That race May 10th, takes place in that week between the Preakness and the Kentucky Derby. So it kind of fits on the calendar nicely for the Belmont Stakes. You've got an extra week from the horses from the Preakness. You're a week sharper, and you don't have the rigors of the Kentucky Derby to worry about compared to the horses coming out of the Kentucky Derby. So on timing, that's not bad for Hill Road. How good is he? That's the question. He's got to pick up 8 pounds. He only carried 118 in that 1 1/8 race in the at Aqueduct in the Peter Pan. So now he picks up 8 pounds. He has to go 1/8 of a mile farther. But certainly bred to do well here at Saratoga. Hill Road is by Quality Road. Quality Road, a horse who loved it at the Spa. He had a lot of big wins. The Amsterdam, the Woodward, ran 3rd in the Travers. He was 2nd in the Whitney. He ran 4 times at Saratoga, and he was there in all the big dances and ran really well on all of them. And, of course, Quality Road sired a couple of fillies and mares who have had major stake success going 1 1/8, 1 1/4 at Saratoga. Horses like Abel Tasman and Dunbar Road by Quality Road, who have done exceptionally well going 1 1/8, 9 and 10 furlongs even at Saratoga. So something to like about Hill Road, of course, is Dam Sire's Lemon Drop Kid, winner of the 1999 Belmont Stakes. That's not apples to apples, of course. The Belmont at 1.5 miles back when he won it at Belmont Park. But there is no shortage of distance and pedigree for Hill Road, and he's going to be coming at the end. We talked about him as one of the closers in this race. You're going to need a faster pace, I think, for Hill Road to have a major impact on the win end. Chad Brown goes for his first Belmont Stakes. He was right in the mix last year with Sierra Leone. He's been 2nd in this race before. He'll look to get over the top. Irad Ortiz rides Hill Road, one of the newcomers to watch in the Belmont Stakes. Talk about some of the other newcomers in here. Let's talk about Crudo, who last time out won the Sir Barton Stakes on the undercard at Pimlico for a Preakness weekend. Todd Pletcher trains the son of 2018 Triple Crown winner Justify. Crudo's a horse who's only run 3 times. He's got 2 wins. They were blowouts. He hasn't been beyond 1 1/16 though. So a big stretch out in distance here. He's going to go 330 yards farther than he's ever run before. But here's Crudo in action, winning the Sir Barton. Let's go back to the call from NBC Sports.
Crudo trying to take him all the way. Invictus continues to run after him on the outside. Crudo by 1.5 lengths now as they come to the top of the stretch. John Velasquez and Crudo come off the turn with an expanding lead. It's up to 2.5. A fresh challenge coming from Just a Fair Shake, who has moved up into 2nd on the outside. But Crudo's left him and the others behind. Oh, Crudo's opening up. 5, 6 lengths in front of the 16th pole. And Crudo, for Todd Pletcher and John Velasquez in those Bobby Flay colors, they won it by 8 lengths on the wire.
On the front end that day, Crudo in the Sir Barton, he's projected to be right up near the front, if not on the lead, with Rodriguez as part of our pace prediction here in Belmont Stakes 157. Expect him near the front at the beginning. How far can Crudo go? That'll be the question under John Velasquez. How much pressure does he take, or how much pressure does he have to give with Rodriguez? That's going to be a big deal, because while he finished opening up there in the Sir Barton Stakes, he didn't come home particularly fast. Only a 90 brisk late pace figure. So many horses in this race consistently hit triple digits, if not mid 105s, 106, 108s. It is going to be difficult to see out 1.25 miles for Crudo unless he just runs something that we haven't seen on paper yet. He's only got the 3 career starts. There is some ceiling there, obviously, for Crudo. Again, by Justify. The Justifies have done very well on the main track at Saratoga. We're telling you about these pedigree points because if you look at the field for this year's Belmont Stakes, they have exactly 2 career starts at Saratoga. Uncaged has one of those, and the other was a 2-year-old race last year by Sovereignty, as we mentioned already. So that's why pedigree comes into play a little bit here as we're talking about Saratoga, which one of these horses may be bred to like the footing and run well at the Spa. Of course, I talked about Justify, the 2018 Triple Crown winner. Justify never ran at Saratoga, but his offspring are getting 21% winners and are 40% in the exacta on the dirt at Saratoga, including a couple stakes winners. So 17 for 40 in there, 17 for 42, 40% in the exacta for the offspring of Justify. on the main track at Saratoga. So it's not going to be the track that gets Crudo beat. It's all about the distance. And can he finish the deal in just his fourth career start with that weakish late brisk pace figure last time out in the Sir Barton Stakes? If he doesn't take a lot of pressure, if Rodriguez doesn't send for some reason, if he gets away, clunky or shuffled back, and they default the lead to Crudo, the slower they go, the better for him, I think, in this particular spot, because I do think he's going to be challenged to see out the entire trip. As for the other newcomers in here, we talked about Rodriguez some, but we talked more in depth about Rodriguez. Next up, Rodriguez is a horse for trainer Bob Baffert, who's finally getting a chance in the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont series. He was scratched from the Kentucky Derby with a foot problem. He wasn't able to get back and make it to the Preakness, but he got back to California, and Baffert's gotten work into him that sets him up now for a chance here in the Belmont Stakes. Let's go to the workouts at Santa Anita, this courtesy of First TV. Rodriguez was working 7/8 of a mile at Santa Anita. This is sort of typical of Baffert to work a horse 7/8 of a mile from different poles on the racetrack. Give them a two-turn work and really try to get a little bit more of game situation into them and help to try to build some stamina, because Rodriguez hasn't run since April 5th, right? He ran in the Wood Memorial when he won that race wire to wire. We haven't seen him. He's been away 2 months now, right? April 5th all the way to June 7th for the Belmont Stakes. He's been off 2 months, and he's going to have to try to get some fitness into this horse in the morning. And this is what Baffert has done in recent works. Since leaving Churchill Downs, he worked 7/8 of a mile at Santa Anita. Then he came back and worked the 5/8 on the 30th. So the two workouts in Southern California for Rodriguez since leaving Kentucky, a 7/8 and a 5/8. So he's worked basically 12 furlongs in the two. And look at him riding him out through the turn in here again, completing that two-turn 7/8 of a mile workout. They're trying to play catch-up, and a workout like this tells you that they know they're playing catch-up. This is a good work from Rodriguez. Certainly nothing to knock in the work, but just the structure of the workout alone tells you that they're missing races and they're trying to make up for the stamina. He's going to cook as far as he can and as fast as he can, I think, on the front end under jockey Mike Smith. This is the son of Authentic, of course, the 2020 Kentucky Derby winner. Bob Baffert's won the Belmont Stakes 3 times. Of course, he won it with Point Given. Then he came back and won it twice when wrapping up the Triple Crowns, 2015 America Pharoah, 2018 Justify, of course. Baffert also has 3 second-place finishes in the Belmont Stakes. So from 13 Belmont starters, he's got 6 exacta finishes, Bob Baffert. But it hasn't been a good run for Bob Baffert recently. His 2025 stats are a little bit in the struggle tank, if you look at it. I've got these numbers here somewhere. Baffert, where are these numbers at? I've got them somewhere. He is in 2025. I want to say Baffert's like 1 for his last 16 with the 3-year-olds in the and the only one of those wins since like the middle of February is Rodriguez winning the Wood Memorial. His 3-year-old stakes horses, don't have the number right in front of me. This is what happens when we go live. But Baffert, since like the middle of February, has just the win with Rodriguez in the Wood Memorial. Otherwise, he's like 1 for 16 with that win with Rodriguez, and hasn't had much success whatsoever with his 3-year-old stakes horses on the dirt. So his barn that got off to a kind of a quick start in January, February, hit the skids about mid-February and hasn't done anything since other than this horse. And as we get to the final leg of the Triple Crown, this is the only one still standing for Baffert and Rodriguez. And Rodriguez is coming off a 2-month layoff where injury forced him to miss the Derby and the Preakness Stakes. So we shall see how far and how fast he goes. Probably, again, is impacted by Crudo, those 2 horses on the front end. Can he last out the mile and a quarter? We will find out. I'm not wild about the dam side of his pedigree, as Cherokee Run is the dam sire in there. He's a 3/4 brother to One Liner. I know One Liner ran second in the Pimlico Special at a mile and 3/16, but he was much better around the mile and a 16th. I kind of think that Rodriguez is going to be strapped to get the distance, and I think Crudo being in the race is going to press him. I think those 2 are both distance challenged. And again, so as we go back and look at the pace scenario that we have here, the pace projection, if Rodriguez and Crudo, after evaluating these horses through the various topics that we've been going through over the last half hour, if we don't like, and I don't, with Rodriguez and Crudo to last, that means Baeza gets first run, Journalism gets the second run, because Uncaged is kind of an overmatched horse in this particular spot, sixth in the Peter Pan, and really a horse who's overmatched in this particular race. This race goes Baeza, Journalism getting the first shot to tackle that speed, and then can you hold off the closers? Of course, the big closer being Sovereignty, the most logical one to worry about. But really, the way things kind of shake out, there are no excuses in here for Baeza and Journalism. If either one fires their shot, they should get first run on Sovereignty, and they should get the right kind of pace in front of them that will be fair. It's not going to be a collapsing pace, but it'll be a fair pace, I think. And there are no excuses for Baeza or for Journalism as we take a look at all the different categories of horses going into the Belmont Stakes. Now, let's finish up with our fifth and final topic this week on It's Official. If it's a jockey's race and everybody gets that first over move that they want, the race sets up the way we think, who blinks, who makes the right move? If it's a jockey's race within a race, now we have another topic to discuss, because obviously Umberto Rispoli's rides in recent races and even back on the trail with Journalism have been under fire. You know, we talked about this in some of our topics in recent weeks on this podcast. Steve Asmussen, the Hall of Fame trainer, whose horse in the Preakness Stakes was banged around on the inside by Journalism, by Umberto Rispoli, and the aggressive bullying through the hole at the top of the stretch in the Preakness Stakes. Asmussen was very critical of Rispoli, saying he rides the horse like a rented mule. That's a bit extreme, but if you really don't like the rides that Rispoli has put on Journalism to this point, there is video evidence to back some of that up. It's not without some complaint. I love the horse. I like the rider. But the reality, the film is the film, right? As they always say when you're scouting or anything, there are some questionable rides. And so I think with Journalism being out in post number 7, staying outside, I think could be a good thing. I think if he's third or fourth down the backstretch on the outside, this is exactly what he wants, and he should get the trip that he needs. But if it comes down to a rider's race, who does what at Saratoga? I looked at the BetMix database and ran the numbers since 2020 at Saratoga on the main track. Here are the jockeys in the Belmont Stakes in their post position order with the number of wins they've had in Saratoga main track races over the last 5 years and their win percentage in those. Of course, Mike Smith doesn't show much. He's riding Southern California mostly these days, but Mike Smith has had a hell of a run at Saratoga in his return. Just not so many rides in the last 5 years. He's only had 3 at Saratoga, but he is a multiple leading jockey at Saratoga over the years. So you would have no question thinking that Mike Smith could certainly ride very well at Saratoga. He's been leading jockey there in the 1990s in the past. But as the other riders go up and down the line, obviously Irad Ortiz, Luis Saez, but they're not on horses that you really have a big feel for in here. Irad's riding the One Hill Road. Saez is on Uncaged, who's probably the longest shot on the board, I think, to do anything in here. Flavian Pratt was second in the standings at Saratoga last year. Also had the second most wins. He won 6 during the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, the inaugural one in 2024. Pratt won 8 races during the Racing Festival last year, or Pratt won 6. Irad won 8 during the Racing Festival last year to top all riders. Junior Alvarado was 3rd in the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival last year with 4. Junior Alvarado wins about 15%, a very solid, above average to average win rate at Saratoga over the last 5 years. And of course, he will ride Sovereignty. Umberto Rispoli, no starts in the last 5 years on the main track at Saratoga, nor Safi Osborne, the jockey coming over to ride Heart of Honor from the UK and the UAE. That'll be her first trip over the track at Saratoga when she rides in the Belmont Stakes. As for Rispoli, he has picked up 14 mounts during the course of the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, again, Wednesday through Sunday, but he's got 14 mounts before the Belmont Stakes, 6 of them on the main track. He's got a lot of turf mounts as well. So 13 mounts before the Belmont. The Belmont will be the 14th mount of the week. if there are no scratches for Umberto Rispoli. He's going to get a chance to see how he handles the racetrack, but we have not seen Rispoli in action at Saratoga, but he's going to get a good feel for where the poles are, everything, a feel for the racetrack. He's got some undercard rides on the main track on Belmont Stakes Day itself, which is a good sign. If this becomes a rider's race, probably Junior Alvarado aboard Sovereignty has the advantage because he's the best local rider on the best horse. And I would think that with Irad Ortiz's success, Flavian Pratt's right there too, though. Flavian Pratt on Baeza, I probably maybe misspeak by saying the advantage goes to Alvarado. I think Pratt has proven himself at Saratoga over the last few summers, top 2 in the standings. The advantage probably does go to Baeza and Pratt. So once again, there's a lot to like about Baeza. Pratt maybe just a little bit of an edge if we talk about the jockeys in here over Junior Alvarado riding at Saratoga. And then, of course, Rispoli maybe on the best horse in journalism. I personally think he's the best horse of the crop, but he's running for the 3rd time in 5 weeks. And again, he's got the jockey far less experienced over the main track at Saratoga than what we're looking at with Sovereignty and Alvarado and Pratt aboard Baeza. So that's the way we shake down the Belmont Stakes from a lot of different angles. We hope you enjoyed our handicapping this week. Let's review the topics. The Belmont Stakes post and pace. We looked at the field of 8 and talked about how we think the race should shake out. Look for a fair pace, but on the front end, it should be Rodriguez and Crudo setting the tone. Who gets the bounce in the rubber match? Well, the Derby winner meets the Preakness winner. History says you go with the Preakness winner. The fitness and the rest, perhaps, for Sovereignty might put the edge in his camp. To me, I think it's a bit of a coin flip. The Triple Crown Double Downs, horses running back 2nd time in the Triple Crown Series. Baeza could be a big factor on the win end in his 2nd Triple Crown appearance. And maybe a long shot to keep an eye on with that 109 late brisk pace figure in the Preakness. Heart of Honor might be passing some horses late in his 2nd Triple Crown attempt. The fashionably late to the party horses, the horses making their debut in the Triple Crown Series. To me, I think you've got speed players in Rodriguez and Crudo. You've got Hill Road from off the pace and the long shot on Cage. I don't see the new horses having a factor in the final 16th of a mile of this year's Belmont Stakes. And the jockeys race within a race, maybe the edge to Flavian Pratt aboard Baeza, according to the stats on the main track at Saratoga. Those 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel and I say so. That's how we play the game here on It's Official. Continued well wishes to my friend Jeff Siegel. He will appear in the first Belmont Stakes wager guide. Looking forward to getting his final thoughts on the Belmont Stakes and look forward to having Jeff back on the podcast as soon as he's well enough to do so. On behalf of everybody with First Bet and Express Bet, be sure to play this weekend with the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, or our $20,000 exactathon at First Bet and Express Bet is on Friday and Saturday. Be sure to check out all the rules for our promotions and opt into the promos when you sign into your wagering account for all of the benefits. Have a great Belmont Stakes, everybody. Good luck.